Now, NHS Dentistry is at the most perilous point in its 75-year history, and that's according to a leading health think tank. The Nuffield Trust has warned that urgent reforms are needed to slow the decay of services, but that restoring them would probably require an unrealistic amount of money. Well, I'm joined now by Mark Jones, who's the founder of Toothless in England, which calls for an NHS dentist for everyone, something I think we can all agree on. Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Astonishing figures out today, absolutely mind-blowing figures. 82% of NHS dentists, over 5,000 polled, aren't accepting new adults on their lists. 71% aren't even accepting children. Rises to 99% of practices in the southwest of England rejecting requests from all adults. This sounds like a third world country. This doesn't sound like an NHS dentistry service that's fit for practice.
You're absolutely right. Good afternoon, Martin. Thanks for having us on. It almost seems every announcement made about dentistry or any research that goes into it, the outlook looks worse and worse for everyone. And let's remind ourselves that there are patients behind these figures and numbers announced today that are in acute pain. They are suffering in awful circumstances, pulling their teeth out, literally, in frustration at not being able to access a dentist. And we heard just last week, Martin, Cambridge County Council, one of the councillors there talking to the debate, said 18% of under 5-year-olds in Cambridgeshire have visible signs of decay. Now, what sort of start in life is that we're giving our children? And of course, it's not just children, it's adults as well, people missing work because they're in so much pain, being admitted to A&E because they overdosed on painkillers, people dying because oral cancer wasn't picked up soon enough. It's an awful situation to be in.
So, Mark, you talked there about people reverting to DIY dentistry. We started to hear about this, of course, during lockdowns, when people were driven to that through sheer desperation. But when you talk about under 5s who are having visible signs of decay, that strikes me as something quite different. Is that about a lack of access to dentistry on the NHS, or is it about something else? Is it about poor dental hygiene filtering down through poor parenting?
Well, I think there's a couple of things to point out here, Martin. Yes, access is an issue. We get inundated with messages on our post boards, on our various Facebook groups across the country, campaign groups, that with parents saying, I can't find a dentist who's going to accept my children. And there are children almost coming out going into high school now who have never seen a dentist. Now, that's not about parents not doing the right thing. That's about a lack of lack of access. But the point about, you mentioned in inverted commas, bad parenting. There's a lot to be said about education, oral health education. And unless there are prevention strategies in place and they have been, whether it's in this country or across the world, prevention strategies do offer, and they are a proven effective tool. And it's education that we do need. That does play a part, but also access as well. But I would like to, if I may, Martin, just point out that we met with Andrea Leadsom last week, who's the latest minister to have responsibility for NHS dentistry. And dentistry is one of her top 3 priorities. She gave the impression, and we can only take her at face value, that she's determined to resolve the issue, which is great. It's good to hear. What we have said is on the back of what she said about announcing a recovery plan in January for NHS Dentistry, what we've said is, look, it's absolutely essential that you provide emergency access to those patients who are suffering in pain right now. That really is a top priority. And to do that, we've asked for the mothballed dental facilities. They were mothballed some years ago in minor injuries units and community hospitals. They were mothballed. We've asked them to urgently reopen those as emergency treatment centres so that we can get that throughput of patients getting treatment. And also, Martin, lastly, to bring about mobile dental clinics. Those are able to get into communities, especially in particular rural communities, that are just completely, there's no access, no hope for them at all when it comes to access. So we're pushing and pushing and pushing. And thankfully we are going to be part of this conversation, ongoing conversation. That's a commitment by the minister to have us sit at these round table, give us a seat at these dentistry round tables.
Well, it's great to hear, Mark. And there's a black hole of about £500 million in dentistry, it says here in this report. Since 2014, 2015, we spend £3.1 billion a year on this. But of course, we have huge problems with immigration as well. 745,000 extras means there's a lot more strain on the service. Mark Jones, the founder of Toothless in England, certainly not toothless by nature. Thanks for all the work you do, and please keep it up in the new year. Great.